welcome to the Nirvana Strength Practitioners Panel podcast, where we explore the idea of human performance optimization. I'm MacLeod, the co-founder of Nirvana Strength, and on today's episode we'll be joined by Dominic Rapson. He has high levels of expertise in holistic ancestral nutrition protocols to help solve your internal issues and performance needs. So today's recording is going to be at one of the most recommended and naturally elegant accommodations in the Canggu area of Bali, the Haven Suites Bali Berawa Hotel, set on a sandy beach along the Indian Ocean. This upmarket all-suite hotel surrounded by palm trees is 4 kilometers from Echo Beach. I think there's a lot of details that they kind of want to make sure it's very specific, but anyways, it's the Haven Suites in Canggu. That's all you need. It's pretty sweet. It's a sweet suite, yeah. Most importantly, they have everything you need to make your holiday epic in Bali. Okay, so then now to the actual podcast. So Dominic, we are going to focus on performance optimizing through nutrition. Okay, so for those of you that don't know Dominic, he is here. He just hasn't said anything yet. His Instagram is origins.nutrition. Yeah, origins.nutrition. And this guy just has so much information. He's probably forgotten more things about ancestral nutrition than I for sure even know. So this is a great opportunity for me to get more information about just everything with regards to nutrition in relation to performance, but also too a good opportunity for those of you listening that are not familiar with the history of food with us humans. And I'd love to start off with something that Dominic said a couple nights ago, was that us humans are the only animal on the planet that doesn't know what to eat, which I think is completely true. We're totally messed up in our nutritional choices. So Dom, if you want to start with maybe just a really quick kind of history or bio of how you've kind of gotten to being a meat eater.
A meat eater. Well, thanks for having me on here. It's looking forward to diving deep into this in this beautiful room that we're in now. It's actually really sweet, so it definitely is a suite.
Yeah, I definitely have to stay here a couple nights.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to a little vacay or in-home vacay. But yeah, Origins of Vitality, it's to put it really quick, because I mean many people have heard it many times on other podcasts, and obviously we just had it over at the dinner discussion that thank you for hosting me with as well. That was really,
it's great
really
to
cool.
have. We had so many interesting stories that came up.
And great questions, and obviously they heard it there, so we got recordings of that as well, right?
So we're gonna post the dinner discussion. We got a whole video of that whole 2 hours. Well, it was quite a long time, but we're gonna post that up on YouTube.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, to keep it short then, let's just say I started with the modern ideology and science of nutrition. That is basically what the fitness industry is revolved around. From being a bodybuilder and training physique and bikini clients, that was my main thing. And then quickly understanding that nutrition wasn't really serving me in what I wanted to feel, which was really good and have longevity and just feeling overall healthy in my body. I then transitioned onto a vegan diet, which most of you know was more to do with spiritual reasons, and beginning the practice of yoga. Transitioning through then onto more of a pescatarian. A lot of you may know, or just so you know now, I was a spear fisherman where I hunted nearly at least 3-4 times a week. I was getting my own food from the sea.
We'll definitely have to talk about the spearfishing and the hunting. That's a very interesting topic.
Sure, yeah, we can go more into that as well. And that's also something I'm hoping to develop out here in Bali again as well. Being in the city has removed me from that, and it sucks. So. But yeah, and then going back into eating meat heavily and working ketogenically, and then not really understanding what it is I was doing, just changing from diet to experience the different ways and the different feelings. Obviously, veganism didn't work for me, and if you know my practice or you check me out on Instagram, you see that I'm heavily against it, and a lot of my work is explaining why not to be vegan and how it's not a species appropriate diet. which I'm sure many people want to discuss against. But,
yeah, of course. I mean, I think even though there seems to be a big movement with regards to veganism, it's still, I think, as an overall, like, there's not really a ton of people doing it, I don't think. I mean,
no, that's true.
Because there's a lot of, there are people doing the paleo diet, people doing like other keto diets, even vegetarians still eating, some form of
eggs, dairy, that kind of thing, or taking whey protein and stuff.
Even though there are a lot of companies and industries, I guess the big thing that's coming out soon is the whole Game Changers movie with pretty some prominent figures. Yeah, they're starting to push the whole meatless.
Yeah, that's a good one to get into, because we can then discuss, their changes and how they were before with meat, which is a really deep subject actually. Because if we're going to get into this subject now, we've got to look at, okay, so these athletes are vegan. Okay, how did they build themselves up first? Were they vegan the entire time or vegetarian before? And it's like a lot of the vegan bodybuilders. They built themselves up as vegetarians, and a lot of them, and predominantly most of them, meat-based. So they build up their marrow stores, they got all of the nutrients in, they build a shitload of muscle, then they turn vegan, and then suddenly they're like, oh, look at all this muscle I've built.
I do think that, a lot of people will point to, like, this upcoming movie, like Game Changers, and one thing that's very easy to see with regards to all the athletes is that they're all former athletes, right? They're no longer in the competitive realm, or even someone like they have the one vegan strongman. And on like Joe Rogan's podcast, like not too long ago, they had, he's probably the second or maybe even the number one strongman in America, and they were talking about how like I think his deadlift was like 690 pounds or something like that, but to actually discuss it, but actually discussing it like in relation to actual high level strong men, and he wouldn't even be top in an amateur league like with those numbers. So though he is, and also I guess recently he hasn't even competed in over 2 years. He's been injured. He
hasn't recovered at all.
He hasn't even recovered from his injury from 2 years ago. Still a big proponent of the vegan diet, but can't actually perform.
So can't actually show anything anecdotally either.
Right. So, but I think maybe a good idea with regards to even talking about why people shouldn't do veganism. I think a big focus on it is a lot of the ethical and moral reasons for doing it, right? I think there's more
the emotional side of it.
Yeah, there's more argument for doing it for those reasons as opposed to doing it for actual performance reasons. Why do you think most people lean towards a diet that is mostly vegan, and who are these kind of people that usually eat a vegan diet?
Yeah, that's a good one. Usually we see that most of the companies that have a certain agenda in veganism, they hit people emotionally. We see the largest populations of vegans are obviously in very well developed Western countries. Those that are not in Western countries, it's usually dealt by religion. And I have like clients in India who are now eating a lot of meat, and they've explained to me the situation of how a lot of the people there, it's made by the Brahmin priest to give this false sense of superiority, and it keeps the population dumbed down and malnourished and easy to control without the chance of letting them rise to having a decent quality of life. But in Western countries, especially in America, we see that the stats is majority of the vegans in America, in the United States, is female. And what do females, I'm not saying all, but what do most females tend to think with? Their emotions. They're more emotional creatures than the male side, so they get hit the emotional chords through advertisement, through this whole documentary series that we see, which always seems to target the poor side of human behavior, which is the factory farming and the mistreatment of animals and such. And then they are led to believe that all animal farming is that way, and that then you get like yoga as well. Yoga's infiltration into the West and the Hindu beliefs masqueraded under it is another huge factor. So you start to get a lot of people doing yoga now as well, and get into what I call is New Age spiritualism, which are these false ideas around what it is to be human and what it is to be connected to what some may say, what some want to call now Gaia and the universe and such.
Right.
And they're led into thinking that the frequencies of their body and the frequencies of meat don't mix and match. And there's this whole pseudoscience going on at the moment, which ignores our complete ancestry and evolution, which ignores every single tribe living out there that is far more spiritual and in tune with nature, that follow the cycles of nature and life and death. And it's because of these movements now, corporations have gotten behind these movements and pumped it out to the masses. Along with social media now, it's very easy to give misinformation and put money behind it.
Yeah, I think with the veganism, the vegetarianism, you go to America and you see that the majority of the food in the supermarkets are highly processed. We got things in whatever size boxes, bags, cans.
Well, majority of the food is plant-based, and yet we still have a huge rise in disease and obesity. So
yeah, that's the kind of interesting thing about, if you actually looked at the especially the rise of obesity in America, is that as more and more processed food, it even seems like as the more we understand nutritional science, or we say we understand nutritional science, the fatter and unhealthier that people tend to get. It doesn't seem like nature was supposed to be so difficult, right? I mean,
we've used our intellect to complicate it, and then we've also used financial greed to push an agenda on what that nature should be. So it's very difficult for the odd person who doesn't have a chance to study nutrition or experience the different sides of nutrition to have a good opinion on it, or to be intuitive about how they feel around certain foods.
Yeah. So is the complete opposite now, right? We're thinking about the idea of carnivorism. Is it, would you say, like the perfect diet for everyone, or is it I don't know, like what is carnivorism to you right now?
I mean, carnivore, it's just a label. I like to use ancestral, because ancestral is the pattern of predominantly flesh-based. Our ancestors, way before the Agrarian Revolution, and even during the Agrarian Revolution, we ate predominantly high fat. We ate the fattiest cuts. They were the prized meats, anything that was fatty. We also prized organs, and we ate a lot of organs. Yeah. Obviously, some cultures didn't. Some cultures just gave the organs to the dogs, and they prized the fatty beef, just how we prize ribeye nowadays. And the reason why I say it's adapt for everyone, and why it's something that a lot of people should do, is because those people were the freest of disease and had no modern diseases. And all of the tribes that are still within that ancestral pattern and primitive way of eating are still free of all modern ills. So for those of you suffering modern ills that are caused by modern foods, modern lifestyle circumstances, not all life circumstances can be changed depending on where you are, what kind of work you have to do and such.
Right.
But your nutrition definitely can. If you're willing to spend money on your food rather than spending it on new shoes, clothes, cars and whatnot, you can afford to change your nutrition. And that's where we see the greatest effect. This is something we see, like biohackers want to say, oh, as long as you get your light right and your sleep right and the right bulletproof coffee and such, you will see a difference. But if you're not moving your body and changing your nutrition, those are the biggest effectors of your health in general.
I think, but we think about nutrition and exercise, and the way the majority of the industry is kind of globally, it tends to kind of follow people's wanting of something quick, easy, band-aid to kind of fix the problem.
Yeah, well, that's what makes me laugh though, because what's quicker than just going to the supermarket, knowing you just need a few steaks, buying those steaks, going home, chucking the butter in the pan and frying them. It really is that simple for most. Obviously we have those that, this is an even deeper subject, but they have chronic issues of the gut and of the stomach. And obviously, if you have certain issues like that, you are not functioning as a human animal properly. So therefore, you have to take certain measures to rebuild that system in order to digest anything, regardless of what you're going to eat. But for most of the people, carnivore is perfectly adapt for every single person of every geographical circumstance, every blood type, metabolic type, you name it.
Yeah. So I would want to point out though that when we're talking about eating, or this way of eating as a lifestyle, and more towards the performance and longevity, as opposed to when a lot of people in the fitness industry are talking about like for example, like the whole if it's my macros thing
Yeah.
in relation to just purely your aesthetics and like you could theoretically, right, be in a calorie deficit and look, right, lose weight, look fit, maybe receive some benefit from having reduced body fat, but you're still possibly negatively affecting your
fit-looking sick
longevity.
people.
Fit-looking sick people.
Yeah, I mean, those people get away with a lot because obviously the less body fat you have, the less storage of these chemicals that you're going to put in your body from all the processed food. Also, the more muscle mass you have, the more efficient you are at the turnover of detoxification, getting rid of these things. And we know that muscle mass is directly correlated with longevity. So your metabolism is definitely going to be more flexible and definitely better than somebody who's obese.
Right.
So there's those factors to take in, and it usually takes people like that a long time, especially like vegans as well, that are living stress-free in the sunshine and are eating the fresher, more organic vegetables and moving their body a lot. They will take a longer time to decay, that's for sure. But I mean, is it still optimum? Is there longevity in it? We see that there isn't, because I mean, most of the bodybuilders I know, they eventually end up on replacement hormone therapy. They have to take painkillers to get through all the joint pain they're having. And that's not generally because they're lifting heavy weight with bad form. I mean, these guys are professional. They're lifting weights with proper form. They have their sets calculated, their volume, their proper rest. But they're eating a shitload of chemicals that are going right into their joints, and they're messing up their nervous system. They're getting adrenally fatigued. They're taking loads of pre-workouts and supplements. You know, I mean, they even did when they opened up some bodybuilders' muscles, that the color of their muscles wasn't even natural, because there was all of the supplement intake in there. Their muscles were basically not even real, which was mind-blowing.
Well, that kind of reminds me of the what's the whole like synthetic oil that people were like pumping into their I mean, that's going a little extreme. Yeah, those are really nasty.
What is that shit called again?
I don't know, but you can definitely go onto Instagram.
Like a bubble, like instant gains.
Instant gains. Yeah, that's pretty nasty stuff.
Yeah, there was one guy that wanted the biggest biceps, and it eventually burst, and it got like septic, didn't it?
Yeah, real bad.
That shit was nuts.
What about the idea? So, you know, sometimes labels can be misleading. So when people say, for example, people say that we're omnivores, right? I think I was listening to one guy on YouTube, Chris Kessler, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I really like the way that he used the word omnivore in the sense that, so not in the sense that we can all that we all should be eating like vegetables and meats and in that way, but saying that we have the ability to survive taking in vegetation and meats, though in the true sense of being an omnivore, if given the opportunity, you would more than likely choose things that are more nutritious in that you would choose more nutritious dense. So you would choose the meats and the fats, because I mean that's essentially why you know, if you think of us evolving from you know the monkeys,
different apes,
it was that
humanoids.
We actually evolved so well because we instinctively chose to eat more animal products.
You're talking about like growing the brain and the limb function and the nervous system. It came from saturated fat, specifically DHA, which is docosahexaenoic acid. That's what predominantly our cortexes, our heart, our eyes are all made out of. So you can't disprove that evolution didn't come from eating meats because of the large buildup of it. And as I said in the talk, we have a 3.3 times larger brain, with an evolution of having a shorter small intestine in order to give that brain, which takes 25% of energy of your body, you know, daily. So this is an evolution that, I mean, it's obvious.
So what does, when you say like, you know, obviously the larger brain, I think most people would not really question like what the purpose of having a bigger brain is, but if having a shorter intestine, like what's the benefit of that, or what's the reason for saying that? Well,
I'll start off with saying this whole omnivore thing, I think it's the laziest thing. To call a human or any animal an omnivore is just, in my opinion, it's just ridiculous. Because every animal has a speciality in something to eat. So apes majority of their food will come from starch and fibers from fruit, leaves, vegetation as such. Like a gorilla eats leaves all day, doesn't have to drink any water because 90% of it is water, and then it saturates all of that starch into saturated fat.
But aren't they eating like 80% of the day?
Yeah. You see, as humans are meant to be a little bit more intermittent and sporadic than that as well. We use enzymes, so we digest right there and then. Ruminants and hindgut animals such as gorillas, they're fermentation animals. So that's why they're eating all day, constantly fermenting. That's why they have a much larger intestines than us. So
that's the purpose of the longer.
That's the
larger
purpose. So the longer the small intestine, the more bacteria and the more room for fermentation, the higher the fermentation capacity. So they also carry a hind gut, which is carrying a cecum. Now, we evolved from having a cecum to having a small appendix, which is nearly useless, as their cecum is very active in fermenting down the starch into saturated fat. So 58% of their diet is saturated fat, the other percentage is total fat. Now, ruminants have a 4-compartment stomach, so they're burping up methane and re-chewing grass and then fermenting it in 4 compartments with a much longer intestine as well to produce all of the bacteria in order to break that down. But then if you look, even ruminants and monkeys will eat meat if it's available and when it's there for that quick protein, and they can still digest it. Does that make them an omnivore? I mean, large cats have a less acidic pH than us, but will still eat grass and some vegetation and clay when they need it. Does that make them an omnivore, or are they not true carnivores?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it kind of depends on how you would define the word omnivore. I mean, if you gave gorillas, right, because although they eat a lot more vegetation than they do protein sources, animal sources, I mean, but if you were to provide them the opportunity to eat more protein sources, you think they would naturally do it, right?
I put up a video of giraffes, elephants, deer, goats, rabbits, all kinds of birds as well, that eat berries or insects at most, all eating meat. They will do it at the chance. And I mean, monkeys, and people want to disprove about the evolution of how man grew up on starch and whatnot. I have to ask them, then why is it currently right now, and I mean right this minute that we're talking now, when you hear this podcast, there are monkeys hunting now. They're evolving. Their brains are getting larger. Their limb control. They're making spears. They're throwing spears into the water and catching fish from the trees. You know, they're jumping down and breaking little deers in the Amazon's necks.
So like real life Planet of the Apes kind of thing.
They're coming after us, man.
So like thinking about the word, if we were to use the word omnivore, and back to the way, maybe I'm not even putting it in the right way of what Chris Kessler was saying, but in the sense that we can theoretically a carnivore would never even eat like any vegetation, but the idea of omnivore is that you would want to eat more of a carnivoristic style to have the most benefit, health, longevity. But if you were for some reason like on a deserted island and all you had was vegetation, you could theoretically still
get by.
You could get by, right?
Just enough for maybe something, hopefully a boat or to get a catch of something. But I mean omnivore in the sense that the human body isn't given credit for how intelligent it is, especially when it comes to nutrition or dealing with disease on its own. We always think it has to be complicated. Oh no, you need to take this external herb, this external pharmaceutical, this kind of supplement to get any result, rather than letting the body just use its own mechanisms, right? So omnivore to the sense that we're intelligent enough and we've come from an evolution which wasn't easy. So we are adapt to survive however possible. So I mean, even true carnivores have that same thing. I mean, all of these animals walking around were born like that. They also evolved. And they have those mechanisms to get by as well.
I wonder if there's I guess one of the issues that we might be having with regards to people's nutrition is that they're so wanting to be a part of like a community or a culture where they just like they label themselves, right? And they say, I am a vegetarian,
they want to be right in something. It's like it's pretty fun. It's like, I'm not looking to be like, carnivore is right, carnivore is the way. I'm just like, okay guys, I've been through the other ones. I've traveled to a few tribes. I study tribes very often. And these are some of the most in tune people living free of disease until Western civilization comes in and gives them something they're not supposed to be having, which we see from physical degeneration and nutrition. Nutrition and physical degeneration. I've read this book so many times, I should know that. By Dr. Weston A. Price.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a really good read if you haven't yet. Yeah. And he's an orthodontist, a dentist that traveled across the world to nearly every single tribe in some of the most remote tribes in the world. Before and after they were reached by Western civilization trade. And these people didn't brush their teeth, didn't use any cosmetic products or showering or soaps or anything like that. But their teeth structures, cranial structures, eyes, nose, everything, you name it, were absolutely superb without any intervention at all or supplementation or medicine. Then years later, once trade opened up to these places and wheat came in, different vegetables came in, different sugars and such came in, suddenly all of these people were starting to get cavities. The children were born with deformation of their jaws, deformation of their noses and eye structures.
Yeah.
And this is within the space of 10, 15 years.
So how many tribes did you visit?
I've done 4 so far.
4?
Yeah.
Do you have any? I'm sure you got to have a couple of really good stories from that.
Yeah, I've got quite a few.
Most interesting food or interesting experience you've had?
Well, most interesting food is kind of not that interesting because it was just as simple as meat, fat, dairy products as well was very prominent. As I said at the talk as well, like the Bedouin tribes, camel milk. And most people think, you drinking camel milk?
Is it good?
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah.
It's actually, I also had a company reach out to me.
Did you milk it too?
No, I didn't. Oh. They were doing that. I was delirious during a dry fast.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't as strong as them. They get on with their dry fast in the 40-degree heat like it's nothing, and I was hallucinating and everything. But like you can see now that with the mix of foods I've been having, my skin isn't at its best. But when I was there, and I have pictures like on my Instagram far down, my body was glowing. I looked like a bronze warrior, like the perfect advert for skin health. Like, just absolutely glowing. And these people were so hardy. I mean, they ate some weed as well. Like they made flatbread on the fire and such. Yeah. But I from what I saw and from what I've read, most of the answers, that's all very, very new to them as well. Yeah. They didn't usually used to have that kind of bread. It was mostly dairy.
I would think in that environment, if they were to make bread, that it would be like the roughest, toughest bread that you would... I mean, it wouldn't be so processed as it is now where you're buying like just a wheat flour from...
It's more ancient done. It wasn't sprouted or anything, but it wasn't also through the process. It was flatbread. Yeah. So it was very different. I still tried it and it still made my stomach feel bad and bloated and such. But they didn't have much of that. I mean, that was the little bit that they would wrap up some of their meat in or have at the side with their meat. But the meat was predominantly goat meat, very, very fat. And you look at religious texts, the fat of the land was generally goat. And also their camel as well, but their camels were mostly reserved for traveling through the desert. So they only ate them at a certain age or if there was a certain issue or out of necessity. But the milk was used often, and this is like raw, warm, like proper probiotic stuff. Very healing, full of saturated minerals and nutrients, in the fat.
So what would you say to, like, let's say people want to go into this more ancestral way of eating, but they have, maybe they go out to the farmer's market, they get some raw milk, and then they just start chugging it down, and then obviously they're going to probably have some quite negative effects from it, right? So then they, like, again, going back to this like immediate thinking of, how does this affect me immediately? And so we do see that someone who maybe goes right into it, like full on, has like some really negative experience, and then they treat that as an anecdotal reason for not continuing. Yeah. Right? How do you, so I mean, what do you say to people that like they have like immediate negative responses to the foods they eat?
I mean, I always get people, even those that are ready to go in cold turkey, and a lot do on my programs, they just go straight cold turkey and are fine. But generally, maybe get yourself checked if you're feeling any symptoms that don't feel normal, and then understand maybe there's some steps before. But either that, it's just slow down a bit. take a adaptation phase. As I said, I usually put people through a bit of ketosis first, get them used to that system, let them feel the symptoms of adaptation in that first alone, which can be usually they feel a little bit flat, a little bit tired, a bit of diarrhea as the duodenum and the intestines are used to the rendered fats going through. Also the change in moods that may happen, and get them to feel that first and just take their time. So they're still having a few greens and vegetables, even though I don't consider them useful or beneficial. It's just for the adaptation and the mental, behind it. But if you rush in and you haven't given yourself at least a month to get over some of those negative symptoms, then you're just being silly. Like, if you're just going to do it in a week and expect everything to change, you're not critically thinking about your choice, are you?
Yeah.
So, it's not going to happen in a week. Most people don't feel a grand result until 3 to 6 months in.
3 to 6 months.
Yeah, because it's, you've grown up maybe 15, 20, 30 years eating so much crap.
Yeah.
That your systems are all over the place. They're nowhere near ancestral or normal. Yeah. They're far from normal now.
So to help with like this adaptation phase, you do find that, particularly here in Bali, like things like cleansing, detoxing, juice fasting, doing these things as part of that initial phase to get rid of toxins in the body. Is this something that would be recommended, or do you think this is also something that wouldn't?
Yeah, I think that's all pseudoscience as well. I mean, all of that detoxification, it's based on test tube science, so it's not actual biochemical. They isolate certain compounds of different fruits and vegetables, and then they find a good reaction in mice with that, and they go, oh my god, this does this, so we'll just promote that. Oh, this vegetable is high in this, so it does this. But let's just say there's 79 other compounds mixed in with that one chemical you found,
right,
that are actually shown to cause cancer. And this isn't a lot of vegetables that we eat, and that's why we still see vegetarians and vegans that isolate themselves just to vegetables and mess up their cholesterol, mess up their stomach acidity, messed up their autonomic nervous system, still develop cancer, heart disease, and stroke. So the best way to detox is give your body space. So fasting is the main thing. But obviously be critical thinking about that. Don't just try and fast for 4, 5, 7, 10, 30 days thinking you're just going to heal yourself. You've got to be at a certain stores in your marrow and such in order to be able to do extended fasts. But what I mean is just intermittently fasting, giving yourself time throughout the night and morning just to let your body clear, get into autophagy, allowing cell program death to happen, and then feeding your body the necessary cholesterol without any of the inflammatory foods. And your body will detox on its own, unless you have some mutation, of course.
I think, so that one word you just used, autophagy, is kind of a word that's thrown around a lot now. And can you explain, like, what's the basic idea of like what autophagy is and what is it for? What's the purpose of it?
Yeah, sure. So this one can go deep in many ways. I'll try and keep it pretty short and to the point. So basically, you have a cell window, which is to do with your mitochondria. And your mitochondria are the powerhouses of your cells. They produce the energy, and they also produce the waste in the cells. Now, in order for those mitochondria to be happy, and why most autoimmune diseases happen, is because you usually back up and dysregulate the mitochondria. What autophagy is, it's allowing your immune system, while you're in a parasympathetic state, which is usually in a fasted state, you have no digestion going on or anything like that. Obviously, digestion is a state of parasympathetic activity as well. That's why you feel kind of sleepy and such. But what you're doing is you're allowing T cells and regulation in your body through angiogenesis and anti-angiogenesis, which is your body's system of capillary making as well. You're allowing your body to get into areas of your body, and basically what autophagy is your body going, okay, this is an old cell. Let's not feed any more blood to growing this cell, and let's not produce any more cells on top of that cell. So it's a system of atrophy, basically. So what it's doing, it's going in and it's eating up that old cell and using it as energy, or any bacteria in your body that is not useful. Rather than using food, it's utilizing those old bits in your body rather than building on top. So it's almost your key proponent of longevity and fixing your body.
Okay, so it's getting rid of the old cells and then ideally replacing it with
and then eventually replacing it when you then eat, which is then an aging process when you eat. So you break out of autophagy when you eat, and then you go into hypertrophy, and you go into systems of angiogenesis, where then you're creating a necessary inflammation in order to rebuild cells. But if you're constantly in that drive, you're building on top of all damaged material, and you're aging at a faster rate.
So how is there a certain amount of time that is recommended to fast? Like, should you be fasting for 3 to 4 or 5 day periods every month, or like once a month, or?
I mean, that depends on the state of you and what you're going through. I mean, generally, if you look at the Egyptian scale, which is what I learned out there as well, and you look at Siberian scales as well, which is another tribe I haven't visited yet, but I've done many studies in. And actually the Gaelic tribes, which is a tribe I have visited as well, they're usually all around the same naturally without even thinking about it, which is generally 16 hours plus.
So every day, 16 hours.
16 hours plus is generally from most tribe to tribe that I've seen. And the Arawaks in Barbados, not in Barbados, sorry, in the Caribbean, there's some in Barbados as well. They also aren't really thinking about food that much. And the tribes from the Inca descents in the Amazon as well, they sometimes go days without thinking about food. And I noticed that a lot of the elders there sometimes didn't eat for days, and then when food came in from the hunters and fishermen, they just had a large abundance of food. And I saw that in Brazil. But yeah, the Egyptian scale, eat when the sun is highest and eat when the sun is setting, never fear disease again. So they're eating twice a day. There's the OMAD way, which you see thrown around a lot as well, which is generally 18 to 20 hours. So you're fasting it pretty much an entire day and then eating. But what Nettie and I were doing for quite some time was 30 hours. So eating outside of a day once. So just eating a whole meal and eating about 1 to 2 kilos of meat in one sitting.
We're doing the 30 hours like every eating cycle, or is it like
every eating cycle?
Oh, okay.
So
not like
hours,
just like once a month or something like that.
No, every eating cycle.
Okay.
We were happily doing that in England, training 2 to 3 times a day.
Okay.
And it worked really well. But then you have to be optimal at utilizing your ketones. And ketones is a huge factor in autophagy as well, because ketone is a fasted state. And also when you're eating high fat and meat only, you're mimicking a fasted state as well.
Yeah.
So your body's always being given the chance to clean. And that's why with carnivore, not only does your strength go up and your mental acuity, but your recovery, because all of those 3 things are given time and blood in order to function at their best, rather than constantly being used to go to your digestion, breaking down food and rebuilding tissue.
So if you have people kind of like maybe start off in that the keto phase, is there any like major problems with just maintaining like doing like a keto diet? Yeah.
I mean, as I said with the fasting, it depends on what you're doing. Like, so if you're going to do really extended fast, it depends what your goal is. Do you have an autoimmune disease, especially if it's a digestive one, a bowel one? You want to give it as much space. So the longer the fast you can handle and utilize ketone bodies for energy, the more chance of you clearing that issue and giving the body the needed space to work on it without always breaking it apart and affecting it negatively.
Yeah. So with regards to ketones, is it beneficial to take like I can never pronounce the word.
Exogenous ketones, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another fatty thing that they're selling, isn't it? But it can help you get into it.
Yeah.
But I mean, as long as you're consuming fat and you're gradually building up your satiation so that you can enjoy longer fasts, that's a way better way of doing it, because you're obviously then getting nutrients with it, as exogenous ketones aren't really offering. You're just taking butyrate like on its own. Yeah. You're not really getting the full benefits. So I mean, extended keto, most of the people that have cancer, extended keto is great. Yeah. Because they're not utilizing much energy. They want to be resting. They want to just be doing light aerobic work and such. And they want their anti-angiogenesis full on, which that will help. That will keep their autophagy going for longer extended hours. And it will allow them, because they're feeling nauseous as well, to go longer without having to think about food. And the longer they go without food, as I said before, better autophagy, better cell program death, which is perfect to starving tumors and then letting the body eat away at the tumor. But for most people who are in performance or athletic, not really, because you're so careful about your protein intake. And even on carnivore, we're still usually 1-2 millimolar into ketone bodies, not really that high, as most people try to be around 5 and above.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to keep that, you're not going to get the building blocks, which I say numerous times, which is the amino acid tryptophan, which is carnitine and carnosine, which are big antioxidants and big correlation with them in terms of muscle mass and longevity as well. So the carnitine promotes longevity in the body. So if you're not getting enough of those and you're an athlete who's constantly being inflamed, who's constantly breaking down tissue, your performance isn't going to go down, and that's why your performance isn't going to go up. And that's why I find many athletes, they struggle with ketones to build muscle or have the energy to perform long volume workouts, because the protein gluconeogenesis helps fill glycogen stores as well, and that's what kind of helps fuel us with volume and endurance athletes.
So the idea of eating a ketogenic diet, part of that would be related, or you would adjust it to the lifestyle that you're living. So if you were, let's say you were just purely a scientist or engineer, where you're not really training as much as we are, or as much as like an athlete is, would you put them more on a higher fat diet, I suppose, or it just not as necessary to?
I'll definitely suggest keto for them, because they want more mental acuity, and that's the first thing everyone notices going into ketosis or carnivore, is their mental acuity changes. Their sleep gets better, they need less sleep, they can go hours without eating, which if you're an entrepreneur or a scientist or whatnot and you're working all day, last thing you want to do is have to stop because your blood sugar is constantly crashing.
Right.
When you're eating 5-6 times a day, taking more than 2 hours out of your day for eating.
You can definitely tell, when you're really like into something that you're working on, something very creative, and having to stop because you just have massive cravings for food. It's very distracting. It does kind of suck. Yeah, people
get cranky and moody and stuff like that.
Angry, the whole angry thing.
Well, that's the whole thing. Like we see males, or just general people as well, but the study was done on males, that low cholesterol levels and constant blood sugar roller coaster of death going up and down drives a lot of violent activity in males, erratic behavior, and suicidal, anxious, and depressive thoughts. So anybody who wants a clear mind needs to be following how their ancestors had a clear mind, and that was eating high fat, because cholesterol makes all of your hormones, and if your hormones get flat, so does your mental acuity, and so does your emotional capabilities. You become more erratic.
I do find, so if we think about just diets, nutrition, some people are always going to be very hesitant to try something what they would consider as extreme. So if you just say carnivore, they just think, maybe it's too far to one side, right? And people want to kind of find a balance. Is there, in relation to people wanting to keep like more of the social aspects of their lives, like is there a more balanced approach that you would still recommend for some people, or is there I don't know, like where's the balance? Where's
the balance? There is no balance. I'm just gonna say that there is no balance. It's not extreme, because your ancestors were always doing it, and it's what's created you. The extreme now is thinking that your machine that was made from one thing and is a bag of meat and fat now needs everything else that's not meat and fat. But in terms of that balance, it's not really a balance. It's understand that meat is actually medicine. Don't be scared by the propaganda from companies that want you eating their slop rather than feeling healthy on meat, because we put fear into eating meat, and your control over your food is taken away from you, and they're going to feed you the slop with all of the man-made chemicals and nutrients stuffed in, added iron, added vitamin C shit. And
I think that is kind of weird.
Get rich off of you.
Yeah, that is weird, where you have foods that are
enriched,
right? Yeah, they just chemically put in some other
because it's so devoid and lacking. But they make money off doing this, and they have labs already set up where it's so cheap and easy for them to produce the stuff, and you pay a stupid amount for it, or you pay for their transportation to get a berry from the other side of the planet most of your ancestors would have never come in contact with. But your balance should be that the biggest thing and the majority of your plate should be meat and fat. If you want some decorative items, which is what I call them, as everyone, if you like the crunch of broccoli, if you like some Brussels sprouts, even though, You try and give kids that shit and they reject it straight away. You give them salty beef at an early age, and friends of mine on Instagram tag me in on all their kids putting meat right in their mouth.
Yeah.
But this bitter stuff, which bitter in the wild means danger. It means don't eat. Sweet and salty means safe. So obviously we do have some room for sweet. Many tribes, there's 25% of their calories do come from sweet, like honey and dairy. But I would say, your meat's the most thing on your plate. The other decorative items, if they don't disturb you, and if you don't have a chronic or over-inflammatory issue in your body, enjoy. Why not, And even if you're just eating meat, once in a while, enjoy the other foods. Have some different textures, have some sugar, have some processed food. Life is short. We have made these foods because they're enjoyable and they release that dopamine. But just understand what your baseline to come back to keep healthy, or to de-stress, or to detoxify from those foods. It's meat, and it always has been.
That's good. I mean, I think, if for most people, most people are not athletes. Most people are not going to be super, super strict with what they're eating. But you do find that if we had the majority, would there be like a percentage that you would put on?
On all meat, or?
Well, I mean, let's say if you wanted to enjoy these other foods, would you say that there needs to be at least 70% of your meals, 80%, whatever?
I studied through the check system, and in the holistic thought, it's 80% good, 20% bad. So as long as you're getting 80% good, which is your fat, nutrient-dense, fat-soluble vitamins and minerals, with the building blocks of your body, which is the protein and all the amino acids intact, and you're getting that 80% of the time, the other 20% of the time, if you're not looking to be the most aesthetic or the strongest or the smartest, you're just living your life, doing what you want to do, your profession doesn't count on your appearance or anything, then enjoy the other 20%.
I do find the way you put that is, if you don't want to be super smart, if you don't want to be physically fit, you should eat more of this other stuff. But it almost makes you think too, like if we think about the traditional the food pyramid that was back in the old days. I know they changed it recently, but where we had the majority of your meals should be carbs and wheat, and then we had our fats and meat at quite the top. Obviously, the sugary desserts at the very top, but
corporate influence, huh? I mean, if we look at tribes, it was just, and I mean, tribes I've visited, tribes I've studied, it was all animal sources, even their clothes, even a lot of their weaponry as well, and their homes made from animal products, the skin, everything of the animal was used. And then as we became more industrial and corporations started being made, everything started being replaced. Because it was all to do with money, and it was all to do with agendas on how human beings were thought to be lived, or to control human beings, right? So they're trying to scare you off of meat because the Heart Association, they're made from the Adventist Church, who had a religious agenda to cut down the hormones in men, drop their testosterone by making them vegetarians so that they would be less sexually active. And then they were funded along with Kellogg's, along with other doctors. They all paid into the sugar industry to promote this idea that saturated fat is the reason why people are getting heart attacks and blah, blah, blah. When actually it was in the introduction of all these wheats, grains, processed food, and obviously the refining of sugar. And these companies are now the top organizations currently in the world running the ideas, the studies, and the advertisement on what foods and what we should be eating, and they're all based on nuts that want everyone to be vegetarian. So
if let's say we believed in that these companies are all trying to make people dumb by having them eat all this slop, right? And it actually makes me, the idea of forcing a lower class of people to eat slop always reminds me of when people think about the gladiators and say that, oh wow, they were all vegetarian and vegan or whatever, but they were slaves, right? They didn't get to choose what they eat.
Kings and queens were eating the meat.
So if we think about, let's say these big companies that are trying to push the vegan propaganda, would you then think that probably the people that are pushing it are not actually eating that way? They're probably eating the meat
I mean, the Adventist church
That would
woman,
make
I forgot
sense,
her
right?
name,
Like, yeah.
the woman that started it from her visions on
Yeah.
it, saying that humans should be vegetarian. She would eat fish and meat on the sly.
Yeah.
And people always want to promote Dr. Sebi. I met Dr. Sebi in Barbados, and he did not look well. I did one of his seminars.
Yeah.
This is when I was practicing Ayurveda, which
Who's
I'm now
Dr.
discarding.
Sebi?
Dr. Sebi is the Electric Foods Alkaline Blood.
Okay.
And you know, somebody raised the question about the alkalinity of your blood and meat. People still believe that you can change your pH through food. You can only do that to your stomach.
Yeah.
Your blood is... If you changed your blood pH by 1%, you would die. So it's impossible. Your blood is controlled by your breath and many other factors that can't be changed by food. But Dr. Sebi, he's very well known for promoting electric foods and alkaline foods, completely vegan as well. But even he was eating fish without his followers knowing, because he was starting to deteriorate and he knew he needed it. And he also died out of malnourishment from, he got a flu while in jail, and he died. He wasn't strong enough to fight it, and also he lost his court cases and was sued a load of money because he was chatting a load of pseudoscience and promoting it as the truth.
That's nuts, man. So the whole alkaline thing, I mean, so you can only change the alkalinity of your stomach?
Yeah, and that's what most of these vegans and vegetarians do, which is detrimental to their health. Because if you look at our stomach acidity is 1.5. It's more acidic than cats and dogs and the lions roaming out there. We are one of the most carnivorous animals on the planet.
Yeah.
The only more acidic than us is falcons and eagles with 1.3. Which is because they eat so much infected and rotten meat.
Yeah.
But our stomach is 1.5 because we started as scavengers eating rotten and old meat. As I said, we were quite useless predators until our brain grew and we developed tools to hunt off the bigger animals. So also vegans are like, yeah, but why don't you eat that meat raw? Why don't you catch it with your claws? I mean, we're a different species to a lion and a bear. Like, they have big teeth and claws.
Yeah.
Our weapon is our brain. This is why we're here standing as the most ambitious and most predominant freaking creature on this planet, because our biggest tool is our brain, and that's what we evolved, and that's why we made weapons.
Yeah.
And
it is kind of funny though how it's like, though we've gotten to a point where our eating the way of our ancestors has gotten us to a point where we can think so well, we can use our brains to do so many things, and we're almost purposefully like using our brains to make ourselves dumber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, I mean, because if you look at how it went, like, obviously I study a lot of anthropology. Anthropology is actually the predominance of my study. And then I study the biochemical activities of how it happened after. So I link it all together. And if you look at anthropology, the way the brain grew, the first thing we did once our brain grew and we had more control and understanding of how the world worked around us was make sharp objects and make fire. Then after that, we still didn't know how to communicate or speak at this point. Then as the brain grew, we actually started getting more intellect with emotions. Then language came.
Okay.
Which is incredible. And then once language came and that kind of communication came, that's when we were starting to hunt freaking mammoths and come as groups and feed ourselves for longer off of animal flesh. And we became so voracious that we started spreading across the globe. And as we spread across the globe, we evolved more. Our blood started to make different fucose bonds, and that's when the different blood types started to arise. So it all started off from meat, which is ridiculous to say that suddenly meat is bad now.
Right. So if, let's say, there are going to be a lot of people, their belief system is so ingrained in who they are and what they do, and there are going to be some people they're never going to change. I don't know. Like, I understand that idea, like, there shouldn't be like a balance, or there shouldn't necessarily be like a middle ground, but in the grand scheme of things, like, veganism is not going to take over the world, and probably carnivores is not going to. Yeah. So, I mean, what is something that pretty much everybody can get behind with regards to meat production, vegetation production?
That's a good one.
Right. So, like, what is something that would be an easy place for everybody to actually come together and just be like, all right, we for sure, like, no matter what actually happens with regards to like how everybody eats, these are the main things that everybody can get behind.
Main thing is get behind the control of your food. Stop paying these corporations that are trying to feed you their processes to make food, if you keep supporting them with your dollar, you're going to squash out the little family farms that are doing it right, that are regenerative practices. These farms which are allowing us, and there's more than enough land for it, and a lot of the land that's being used for crops could be utilized better for ruminant farming. A lot of the land which cannot be used for crops, it's just sitting there wasting away rather than having ruminants on it. A lot of the lands that have become desert can be reversed by putting ruminants on it and farming for meat. So get behind the family farm. Buy your meat from the family farm, or even at the supermarket if that's all you have. Spend your dollar on the grass-fed meat. Support those because they're regenerating topsoil, which is going to feed all of the generations, your children, and put your dollar behind those families because you make them well, their children are going to learn how to farm and they're going to keep farming for us. You stop paying these companies and giving them money to fund stupid epidemiological studies which are going to be used to convince and persuade / confuse the new generations that are going to be hit emotionally, born in the cities that have probably never seen a cow, think milk just comes from the supermarket. You know, you're going to just help the confusion there. You're helping a bunch of elitists that have a certain idea on how humans should be, regardless of the science. They're going to pay, they're going to cheat, they're going to lie their way into all of their products and creating more products being bought by you.
Right.
And then hand in hand with their partners who are going to lie and cheat their way into giving you more pills, more short-term allopathic, quick, just the not the root issue but just the symptom issue kind of treatment. And I just had a client call today with someone going through endometriosis, and she's now on her 3rd surgery, and now she's got a whole cabinet full of pills, and they keep saying, yeah, this one will solve the issue, we'll just remove the cyst. And the cyst isn't the problem.
Right.
The cyst is just a symptom of the underlying root issue, and they just keep putting it through, and she spent about $30,000 now on freaking treatment, and they're just going to keep getting away with this, guys, unless you take control of your food.
Yeah, the hard thing with regards to like doctors and I mean the pharmaceutical industry, right? I mean, there's so much money in treating symptoms and not actually treating the underlying problems.
Yeah, return business.
I mean, yeah, because if there actually was a cure, who knows, there might be, but if there was a cure for cancer, think of all the treatments, the pills, like that's a massive industry.
The whole industry just sunken out of the game,
right? I mean,
multi-billion-dollar industry just
yeah,
gone.
I mean, the same
a lot of
thing,
unhappy pockets.
Yeah, and the same thing with the supplement industry. Yeah, and then all the process. I mean, yeah, I mean, even the idea of like saying you should just eat more meat and being that simple, like that essentially attacks every single food company out there for the most part.
It's funny,
right?
yeah, because you want to build more muscle, eat more meat. You want to help your brain, eat more meat. You want to help your digestive system, eat more meat. You want to lose weight and be aesthetic, eat more meat. It does so much because it's the essentials that the body wants, and it's what the body runs and builds itself upon.
Yeah.
So whether you want to include the other stuff, fair enough, but a lot of us choose not to now.
Yeah, again, I think too, like some people are still going to be, you know, interested in the idea of carnivorism or interested in the idea of eating more animal products. But I would say too, for most people, if there's still like some level of skepticism, is that, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to listen to your body, and if there's actually like you're eating your, you know, high grain cereals and you feel like your energy crashes and you have like all these you're hungry all you're having all these negative effects from the food that you're eating, like actually listen to those things that are happening to you. And
maybe like you may not have time to dive into all the nutrition and the historical and the agendas of corporations, or looking into how the corporations were made and blah blah blah, the whole nutritional world side. Just have a look in the physiology book, and then maybe have a little look at biochemistry, and it's pretty simple to understand the basic functioning of the body. You don't have to dive deep into autophagy. I mean, I could have explained that with a lot more bigger words and terminology, but you don't have to. Just understand what it is and what it does in the short and long term. And once you know these things, you're well equipped and armed to make a sensible decision about the next thing you put in your pie hole.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, pie hole's probably not the best word to use there, but most of the people, it is a pie hole. But.
Yeah. I mean, I think even just making the logical choice of, you know, if you for example, if you need more B12, which is B vitamins, which is something that a lot of vegans are generally lacking in their diet, right? Like, if you have to take a pill to get the vitamins and nutrients that you need, probably something's not natural, something's not right. If you're eating vitamin enriched foods, I mean, they even have it on the labels, right? They're promoting. They're like, wow, look at this food. It's got more vitamins because we put it in.
It's the same with like weight loss as well. If you're fat because you're eating predominantly energy, and when I mean energy, I mean carbohydrates, because that's all they are. They're not essential. They don't build the body. They don't produce hormones. They feed some gut bacteria, but we know that carnivores have a great diversity of gut bacteria producing energy. But if you're eating energy to lose weight made by energy, you think it's smart to just eat less of that energy? Why not eat what just allows you to utilize the energy out of your body? Like Ted Naiman puts it into graphs. If you haven't checked out Ted Naiman on Instagram, check him out, because he puts it direct and simple to the point with graphs. Like energy foods, protein building foods. Loads of protein building foods gives you this result. Eating loads of energy foods, and he puts them in the table, and it's just so obvious. Like,
how do you spell his last name? Do you know?
Ted Naiman. I think it's Neiman.
Okay.
Naiman.
Yeah, definitely have to check that out.
Yeah, he's a doctor as well, and just pointing out simple biochemistry.
How would people how would people go about differentiating like which doctors they should listen to, right? Because like theoretically, any doctor is like, everybody says this doctor says this doctor says that.
Yeah, I nearly thought about getting my doctorate just to have some of that leverage, and then I thought, you know what, I'm not going to be one of those plebs. A lot of these doctors that are doing great work, they became doctors actually thinking the allopathic method was good, and after seeing shitty results and being unhappy with the pay of the work they were doing, they then started getting more into nutritional sciences and now are doing the great work. But I mean, how to differentiate a good doctor? First, you got to look at him. If he looks like a frail old man and that's who you want to take advice from, then you're going to look like a frail old man. If he's falling apart like most of these vegan doctors, then that's what's going to happen to you, because you're listening to the same advice that's getting this guy to where he is.
Right.
So, like, if you look at Paul Saladino, he's as jacked as us. He's way older than us, and he's in great health, and all he eats is meat.
Yeah.
So look at them first. Look at where they're coming from as well. Are they treating? Look at their clients, their case studies. Are they treating symptoms, or have they got good cases of treating disease?
Right.
Which is the same thing when like vegans come to me and they're like, yeah, but you this and that, and I just give them like 5 different documentations of my clients completely reversed and thriving.
Yeah.
And not only this, if you look at the results and you see that they've not only reversed the issue, but many other beneficial things have happened at the same time, then you're usually on the right road. Like, you'll see like vegan skin specialists. Like, oh, I'm a skin specialist. They put people on plant juice detoxes, and look, the skin issue is gone. But when that skin issue was gone, did they also feel energetic, sleep better, build muscle, lose fat, or have they still got all of those issues?
Well, I think that kind of makes me think of like in America with pharmaceutical commercials where they'll basically they treat one symptom, they treat one problem, and then at the very end they're like, but you might get these 15 other negative things happen to you.
May have diarrhea, headache, and death.
Right? And it's
crazy.
Just it's nuts. Like
I always laugh when I see those ads when I go to the States.
Yeah.
And they're so easily pumped out, like, but legally they have to disclose all these issues because most of those things aren't even properly tested. They just come out on the market and they're legally secured and patented. They can just, like vaccines, can be pushed out without real tests, and they're completely protected against liability. But back on the doctor bit as well, is look at the studies they're using and gauging success and biochemistry from. So like if you see a doctor that's pushing out articles that are only paid by companies in their interest, or it's only epidemiology, so all of their information is based on hypotheses rather than conclusion, and that's a key word. The difference between hypotheses and conclusion, epidemiology and clinical. If it's only hypotheses and epidemiology, it means it's just a survey.
Yeah.
If it has a conclusion, correlation, and a clinical trial, then that's a result. Whether it's negative or positive, that's actually got a result. So differentiate those studies from the people you're listening to and that you're reading through as well.
Right. So I guess to look at your doctor, see if they're actually fit or healthy themselves. And then see if those doctors are actually treating more than just a symptom. They're actually treating the underlying problems that people are
long-term results. And where they're sourcing, where they're studying from. I mean, we're not always sharing that openly because obviously that's our work. Like, a lot of people come to me and just straight up ask me, what's your source for this? And I'm like, that's reserved for my clients, and this is what I have stored on my computer for me to read over. I'm not going to go on my computer, backtrack for all of that and then send it to you. But I mean, if you like what we're doing in our work, or if you're skeptical about it, it's pretty easy to find these studies. I mean, if you don't know how to differentiate or anything, that's when you work with a professional and we can help provide that information for you. But it's pretty easy. You go on a study, you look at the abstract of it, how it was performed, why it was performed, and what they were in search of. Then you look at the controls, then you look at the number of participants, then you look at the controls in the participants, and then you look to see the hypotheses. And then if it ends at hypotheses, you might as well just throw that away. Start going deeper, see the variables that happen, and then look for the conclusion. And if it was a clinical trial, just look. Don't just read the first few sentences on a Google search. Look at the actual trials. And I mean, there's so many medical journals and published sites that you can check this on as well.
I think with regards to like those studies too, it's always important to actually, I think, like going back to testing a specific ingredient on a very specific bacteria and using like 100 times more than the average human would actually even consume, and say like, oh yeah, this bacteria died because we gave it a bunch of sugar, but you gave it like so much sugar. You gave it so much sugar, it's like nobody would actually ever eat that much.
It's funny. It's the same with like every cancer study, even clinical, right? And this is why it's easy to dismiss, because the clinical ones that were looking for cancer all came with unconclusive results. All said no evidence or not enough evidence to suggest that it was the issue. And these are clinical trials that have been out for a while. So people will look at the first half, and I've had people send it, and I look at them like, are you mentally ill? Because like I just read through the whole thing. Like the first few bits saying we were looking for evidence in cancer, and we have a hypothesis that suggests it's caused because of the nitrates in bacon and the meat and blah blah blah. But then at the end, when you get to the conclusion after the clinical trial, it says no evidence was actually found or correlated with, or very low amount anyway.
Well, I mean, you think of people, I mean, are spending so much time. I mean, even like, I mean, no offense to like sites like Blinkist, but people just want to get a like a shortened summary of the text they want to read, or they want to look at the research paper, and they don't actually want to look at the whole research paper. Like they just want to look at a piece of it and take
and they copy and paste that.
Whatever fits their agenda.
That's the number way, guys, if you're listening to this, to piss off a coach that you want to get information from. I have a lot of these. It's like they just screenshot one part of some study or article and send it to me. I go, look, here's the proof. And I'm like, are you trying to start a conversation, or are you here to piss me off already this morning? And it's like, come on, man. Like, if you want to talk about it openly, I will share more about it and help you look in the right direction. But if you're just going to screen print 3 words and not actually understand the whole study and expect me to just be like, oh yeah, I guess you're right, I guess I've been wrong all this time. I mean, come on, man.
It's the studies thing can definitely, I mean, it was like with the chocolate studies and the resveratrol, like where the news media was like pumping out like, drinking red wine is great for you because it has like this
coffee and
so they do the same thing, right? So like they have like this one specific ingredient that would be beneficial in maybe a very specific situation, and then just broadly just say it's good for you, you should drink more of this or do more of that, and
disregard the neurotoxic alcohol that comes with it. But
because even I was talking with one of our other members, and someone I did a podcast with, Anita. She was talking about the idea of like resveratrol too, is like in that in itself it's not is not something that's beneficial for you. It's actually not good for you. But the response that your body gives to it is what is what's
which
actually
is a hormesis. It's a hormetic effect, and that happens with a lot of plant chemicals as well. And obviously from the talk, I hope you guys listen to that as well. The dinner discussion we had about some of the anti-nutrients that you get in plants that do have a hormetic effect in some, but in overabundance, when you're eating just 3-4 portions of it a day, are extremely toxic to the body and take a lot from the immune system to deal with it and excrete it from the body. So so you could say that's a benefit, but then to pump it out that's a huge benefit, and that it's gonna then get rid of your fat or get rid of that issue you have here and there and just isolate it to that. It's just absolute bullshit.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of BS out there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanna climb back up to the trees and eat your own shit, then go ahead and remove the meat from your diet. That's what I say.
Yeah. So I hope everybody out there actually wants to get smarter, wants to get more physically fit, doesn't want to eat their own shit.
We'd hope so.
I'd hope so. But yeah, take your food a little bit more serious, and maybe just stay away from the processed stuff. And
that's a good start.
And
get
just
rid of the processed shit.
Get all the processed stuff and actually eat like real food.
Yeah. As you get rid of the processed stuff, you're gonna immediately feel better. Whether you're on a vegan, keto, whatever diet, you remove the processed stuff, and that's why everyone goes, I feel lighter, I feel better, even on a vegan diet. It just then takes 5-10 years later for them to decline again. But if you just remove it and at least have more meat, eat your decorative items, but have your more meat. Eat meat, make families.
I think meat's good. I like meat. Okay, so Dom, where can we find you, bud?
So origins.nutrition is the Instagram handle. Facebook is Origins of Vitality, and YouTube has started up. You'll see me training a lot at Nirvana Strength and riding around the island trying not to die on Origins of Vitality YouTube. So catch us there. Loads of tutorials and more nutrition tips and different guests as well. We'll be having Ian hopefully on that soon, and Johnston as well together, the founders of Nivana. So have a look, guys. So guys, just a reminder, like the basic idea of all these podcasts is to thrive in your life as opposed to just trying to survive life. Whatever that might be, fitness and nutrition, and a lot of different industries as well. But we don't want to just get through this thing we call life. We actually want to make the most of it. So like, thrive, don't get by. Thrive, don't get by. So again, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you on the next podcast, and don't eat your own shit. Peace. Respect.